So I decided today to tackle the topic of suicide prevention because it has been on my mind for quite some time, considering it is National Suicide Prevention Month and that the day I'm making this video, it is National Suicide Prevention Day. But if you see this video at any time, I urge that you share it and talk about your own experiences and leave your own comments and your own feelings on the topic so that we can start spreading the word about it and taking it a bit more seriously as a public. So for anyone who does or doesn't know me, I've had quite a bit of experience with this topic. I have had family and friends speak out about feeling suicidal. I've had people that I've known, even for the briefest of moments, go and later commit suicide. And I have known people who were deeply affected by a suicide from someone who was close to them. And I myself have dealt with suicidal thoughts, and I still do on and off deal with them even nowadays. And we see in the media a lot of talk about celebrity suicides and overdoses. And it's good that we can have these types of discussions and that the media is reporting it. But the way it's being viewed and looked at is that we only really take in what's happening in the world and we really associate it with these celebrities that we know, but it's happening to many people, just everyday people in society, and it is something that we should talk about more so that we can have people who really care about it take some initiative and we can gain more understanding as a public so that we can prevent further suicides. Because we've seen people like Chester Bennington and Avicii who are suicides. We've seen Lil Peep and Mac Miller die of overdoses. We've seen Kanye West talk about how he feels, I believe he said suicidal, or he may have just said depressed, but he expressed that he has some sort of mental illness going on. And it happens to all of us, one point or another in our lives, that we may feel some acute stress and feel that there may be something wrong, or we may feel suicidal, or we may think about it one point or another. But some of these people really have this problem on a daily basis and in a chronic form, so it lasts for a very, very long time. And so this is about more than just suicide. This is about a stigma behind it, and it's about mental illness and even drug addiction that can be associated with it, and the fact that a lot of signs of it may not be so obvious. So when it comes to mental illness, about 1 in 4 people suffer from a mental illness or a brain disorder, so something neurological. And I urge that if you are one of those people to go seek help if you can. And I urge that if you are suicidal and have a mental illness, you especially do what you can to seek help and fight the stigma that we see against them, because you deserve that help. And if you can't get it from a doctor or a therapist, whether that be from issues of money or just not knowing where to go to find any of that information, maybe for some reason or another, speak out to friends, family, and there's even hotlines for it, which I will link below the video and in the comments. But the stigma that surrounds mental illness has been created a lot by TV shows and movies. We see a lot of myths form about things like depression, schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, OCD, and pretty much every other mental illness that you can think of. And these myths and misunderstandings can really, really confuse and hinder someone's ability to get help, or maybe skews the public's point of view on what mental illness is and what suicidal thoughts are. So the reason I mention the mental illness is because mental illness is not always associated with suicidal thoughts. I've met people who were mentally ill with chronic mental illnesses saying that they never really felt suicidal. And so if it's mostly with chronic mental illnesses. If you have a chronic mental illness, you may or may not have suicidal thoughts associated with it, but some people who do not have chronic mental illnesses like depression or OCD can also just have suicidal thoughts just from acute stressors, so short-term things that occur. And a lot of people don't understand that someone could be deeply suffering from the loss of a loved one or the loss of a job or the stress of figuring out something personal in their lives, and that small event can push them right over the edge into a suicide, and then they're gone. And we tend to lack compassion, and we tend to get really confused as a people, and we'll say, there's nothing wrong with you, or you'll be fine, or you should be grateful, or it'll get better, and it's really just kind of sympathy. Like, maybe that's someone's thought of, I'm trying, but like, really try to put yourself in that person's shoes, and you can give a more empathetic response that'll help them overcome the situation. And for people who are mentally ill, sometimes they get confused themselves. I've heard someone with depression say that, oh, I'm not sad all the time. I don't think I actually have that because of like how it's portrayed in TV shows and stuff. And I'm like, that's not how depression works. So there's a lot of myths and misunderstandings that are really taking an effect. And so while we touch on mental illness, and while it is important to get help if you have mental illness, and I urge you to speak out about your mental illnesses, what my point was is that mental illness can be associated with suicidal thoughts, but also those without chronic mental illnesses, the ones that we tend to hear about, can have suicidal thoughts. So if you have suicidal thoughts at all, you should seek help. And I think what we can do as people is, if someone's suffering from a loss, the first thing that should come to your mind is the empathy and compassion for them. Because just as much as that little life event that happened that caused them to go into these suicidal thoughts can cause their death, you can turn around and say or do something for them that can prevent them from going down the very long road of just a worsening condition, and you can help them recover and get back on their feet and be functional again. And while you may not be able to do that directly, as it is not your job to fix a person, per se, you can help them by finding them therapists in the area, doctors in the area, getting families and friends together to make a support group for them. Or you can find support groups in community centers, or a suicide prevention hotline at the very least that they can call if you really can't think of much to say to them, or if you just really don't know how to deal with the situation. And the suicidal thoughts and behavior may not always be so clear, so people can seem entirely normal and still be suffering, or the person may be acting in some unusual mannerisms, but only things that you would notice if you really know the person. And so, no, it's not always those people who dress in black clothes and seem sad all the time or whatever, and that's in itself kind of a stereotype. And it's not always like gonna be a person who looks all disheveled and, you know, maybe has like tattered clothes and doesn't always do things in a timely manner. No, it could be pretty much anyone. Businessman going to work, 50-year-old construction worker, some person on a college campus, no matter what they look like or dress like, doesn't matter. Be literally anyone. And, you know, a lot of them don't speak out, and a lot of people don't recognize the signs of suicidal thoughts. And the signs are, unfortunately, not always entirely clear. But we can work as a public to try to help people and to try to get them to talk by speaking about these things, by making it aware that, yes, if you have a mental illness, go get help. Yes, if you have a mental illness with suicidal thoughts, go get help. But yes, if you don't have a mental illness and you have suicidal thoughts, that's still a very real thing and you need to get help. And that all these people in all these categories should always speak out. And you should not feel afraid to speak out. So while this is a video, mostly me addressing the public on, you know, what should you do if you know someone who's in a situation, it's also for the people who are in that situation right now. Is that I'm making this video because I've been through it, I've seen people go through it, and I care about it. So if you think no one cares about you, I care about you. And there's plenty of other people like me out there who would care, who show the care. And there's plenty of other people out there who are just not educated enough to understand what care they need to show. And so that's really what this video has been about. But the last part I'm going to get to, I know, is a bit controversial, as it is drug addiction. Because we tend to think of suicide as a rope or a gun, or something quick. But some people exhibit risky behaviors and they start doing drugs or drinking a lot, or just tend to kind of come and go, and they tend to stop caring about certain things, and that is in the hopes that those drugs will eventually kill them. It is in the hopes that if they just throw away their life, they'll just be gone. You know, maybe they're not physically dead, but they'll just be dead to everyone around them. And so, whatever your opinions are on that, I know there's controversy around it. If you know someone who's suffering from drug addiction, mental illness, anything, suicidal thoughts, they need help. They want the help. That no one's going to sit there and be like, no, don't help me. And even if they do seem a little resistant or a little odd, they may just not be entirely open to the idea that they can be helped, or they may feel like they don't deserve the help. There's a lot of things that people don't quite understand about the mentally ill, about people with suicidal thoughts, about drug addiction, that we can educate ourselves on. Which is why I have provided links below about statistics and warning signs and hotlines for these things, for people to either call for help, and some of them are to call for understanding, I believe, and some of the websites will help you understand the statistics and what is myth and what is reality. And really, to summarize this point, for anyone who didn't want to watch the whole video, I will put a timestamp in the comments or below. And this is basically just a summary of many people are chronically mentally ill, and those people certainly deserve help, whether or not you have suicidal thoughts. You are not a burden. And if you are not chronically mentally ill and you have suicidal thoughts, you deserve help too. You are not a burden. If you have drug addiction, if you feel suicidal ever, for any reason in an association with drug addiction or risky behaviors, you deserve help. All of those people deserve help, no matter what. Talk to a friend, talk to family, talk to anyone, call the hotlines. They're there for a reason. And you should not feel afraid about reaching out, because suicide is not the answer to anything. And if you feel like you're one of these people and you're like, oh, I don't deserve the help or no one will care, people care. People really, really, really do care. And you do deserve the help. And for anyone who's not suffering, it would not kill you or anyone to show some empathy or compassion. In fact, it may help prevent suicides and unnecessary injuries or deaths. If you educate yourself and learn to talk and care about one another, you could be the difference between someone killing themselves or not. And honestly, again, anyone who's suffering, you're not a burden. Please speak up. Please reach out. There are people who care about you. There are people who will help you, and it is not just their job to help you. They want to help you. And you deserve the help. You deserve to learn to love yourself. You deserve to feel loved by others. And you deserve to be alive. And again, all of these things are linked below. I will have websites on statistics for suicides, warning signs, mental illness statistics, drug addiction statistics. I have a suicide prevention hotline, a mental health help hotline, a drug addiction hotline for help, and one that is for if someone knows someone who's going through drug addiction, to understand what to do and how to deal with the situation. And of course, if there's an emergency, 911 for anyone who's in the US. And there are also many other hotlines and websites that are government run or run by nonprofits that you can find for more specific situations. If it's depression, if it's OCD, if it's heroin addiction specifically, any of those. Because I couldn't touch on all of them. But it is important for us to understand this. It's important for us to understand that there are mentally ill and drug addicted with suicidal thoughts, and that there are people who may seem perfectly fine who just have suicidal thoughts and underlying areas of their thoughts on a daily basis that may not become prevalent in their job or in their work or even in their family. So I urge you to look out for those people if you are one of the people who is healthy and can just find those signs in people and get them to help. And if you're one of the people who isn't, educate yourself on these things too and reach out for the help in the hotlines, and just know that you can make it through and that things will be okay, and you do have the strength to get through it, and you're not alone in it. So I just really urge you to seek the help when you need it.